Ludwig von Mises first articulated some of the main arguments against the possibility of socialism in 1920. He argued that the price system was essential for determining what to produce and how to produce it. It is because of prices set through trade in markets that producers know what the most efficient combination of inputs is, and prices adjusted through supply and demand tell consumers what is relatively abundant and what is relatively scarce. According to Mises, prices make rational economic decision-making possible. Thus, he wrote, quote, "Where there is no free market, there is no pricing mechanism. Without a pricing mechanism, there is no economic calculation." End quote. Moreover, prices change as some goods become relatively more or less scarce, and as technology or people's consumption preferences change. The price system makes it possible for producers and consumers to adjust their decisions and plans as economic circumstances change. Mises wrote that, quote, "In the socialist commonwealth, every economic change becomes an undertaking whose success can be neither appraised in advance nor later retrospectively determined. There is only groping in the dark. Socialism is the abolition of rational economy." End quote. Friedrich Hayek, a Nobel Prize-winning economist, elaborated and built on these arguments. In his famous 1944 article, "The Use of Knowledge in Society," he argued that the fundamental problem in an economy is how to use effectively the information and knowledge that is dispersed in the crowds of consumers and producers. Lots of people have local knowledge of what they need and want, what they can produce, what their plans are, and so on. All this local knowledge would have to be taken into account in order to determine what the best use of resources would be. Hayek argues that when people negotiate and buy and sell in markets, they do so based on their local knowledge of their needs and wants and plans and capabilities. As a result, the prices that arise from these markets actually reflect the local knowledge that the buyers and sellers brought to the market transactions. In this way, the price system actually aggregates and communicates to the world relevant local knowledge. Markets and the price mechanism, therefore, solve the problem of using dispersed knowledge effectively. Making economic decisions based on prices is rational, as Mises claims, exactly because those prices contain relevant and otherwise dispersed information. Hayek and others also argued that socialism would be impractical. Collecting all the information necessary to create a plan for the economy would be very, very difficult, and the computational tasks required to process all the collected information would take years. By the time the plan would be done, it would be irrelevant. This second critique is much easier to respond to today when vast amounts of information are routinely collected, analyzed, and used every day. But in the middle of the 20th century, these problems seemed insurmountable to many. So Mises argued that a socialist economy would not really be possible, and certainly not practical. Some have interpreted Hayek's arguments as conceding that a socialist economy would be possible, but arguing that it would be impractical. Others have interpreted Hayek's explanation of the price system as an information aggregation and communication mechanism, as an argument against the very possibility of socialism. The response to the critiques of Mises and Hayek came from Abba Lerner, Oscar Lange, and Fred Taylor in the form of more detailed and nuanced proposals for a socialist economy. These authors attempted to describe a socialist economy that they felt was clearly possible and even practical. Planners would set prices that would try to mimic prices that a free market would reach. They would find the right prices through a process of trial and error and solving equations. However, for consumer goods, markets would be allowed to function, and therefore the information aggregation role of prices would work in these markets just like in a free market economy. Only markets for capital goods, such as plants and machinery, would be state-run, with prices set by the planners. In this way, production facilities, such as factories, could be state-owned and production state-controlled, so this economy would still be socialist in that these key economic resources would be collectively owned, and no private person would be able to appropriate the profits from production. Still, the combination with free market prices for consumer goods makes this proposal essentially a mixed, hybrid system. Some have interpreted this market socialist proposal as an admission that economic rationality is not possible without a price system. That is, Mises was right. Others have interpreted the proposal as proof that socialism is indeed possible and even practical. At the same time, the trial and error method of setting prices for capital goods has been much criticized as impractical or even impossible.